Thank you, Gladys. And hi, everyone. My name is Elyse Popplewell, and I'm the editor of The Oz, a new website that has launched out of The Australian. We have news you can use, work and money advice, and a lot of topics to get you talking. Financial literacy is a hot topic right now, especially with young people. It's not something we're necessarily taught at school, strangely, so it often falls on parents and friends to educate young people on the do's and don'ts. Here, I'm joined by money extraordinaire Victoria Devine, founder of She's on the Money for practical advice. Hi, Victoria. Thank you so much for joining us at Vogue Codes.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for such a kind introduction.
Oh, my pleasure. To begin, can you share the backstory of how She's on the Money came to be?
Oh my gosh, just like anything good in life, it was an absolute accident. I'm a financial advisor. I have my own practice called Zella Wealth. And it started as a workshop that I would run. I would go into like law firms and corporate environments, and I'd want to talk to women because, as you said, like you're not necessarily taught in school about this stuff. So I would go into these law firms and be like, all right, so I'm going to run this workshop. It's going to be called She's on the Money because I want you guys to be on the money. And these workshops started to gain, in Melbourne, not anything bigger than that, but in Melbourne, a little bit of popularity. And I was doing them like every week. And the feedback was so fun. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, why aren't we talking about this more? So I was like, let's make a Facebook group where we can all just stay in touch. And if you've been to one of my workshops, that's a place where you can ask me some more questions or we can connect a different time. And I did that and it started growing and growing. And I remember this pivotal moment when I posted in the Facebook group and I said, guys, like this is getting big. There's 1,700 of you. And at that time I was like, 1,700, that's like the most amount of people I've seen ever. And I just thought, what are we going to do? And they asked for videos. They were like, please do video. And I mean, this sounds a bit hypocritical given we're doing video right now, but I was like, I'm not confident enough. I don't know how. So I decided to dip my toes in the water when it came to podcasting because that felt a little bit less confrontational. And yeah, from there, we decided on 12 episodes, and then 12 episodes grew to She's on the Money today. And we're now the biggest business podcast in the country and have been for the last 2 years. We have more than 2 million listeners and a Facebook group of like 250,000 people. And yeah, we now produce 4 episodes a week. And it was meant to just be this 12-episode mini-series to educate people, but it just kept growing and growing. And honestly, I was just having so much fun and feeling like I was having such an impact that I haven't been able to put it down yet.
Yeah, I am a listener of the podcast and I can tell how much fun you're having while you're doing it. So that totally comes through. And you have built a really incredible community. At times, your audience must be teaching you as much as you're teaching them, just in very different ways. What have you learned from the community?
Honestly, I have learned, and I feel like this is very selfish, but I feel like I've taken more from the community than the community's taken from me. I've always tried to educate them and give them absolutely everything that I absolutely can. And yeah, I just feel like I've created this life that, I adore financial literacy. I love the stories. I love the narrative. I love everything that that I can do with finance. And yeah, I guess the community's given me this platform where that nourishes me and I get to do more of that. And I mean, now it's kind of like a dream. It's my career. Like I do it every day and I get to do opportunities like this. Who would have thought I'd be working with Vogue and Optus because I'm a financial advisor? Like, what is that about?
You have made a generation of mostly, but not exclusively, young women more financially literate. You just said it yourself then. But what does that term really mean?
Look, I think financial literacy and financial advice do get confused a fair bit. And as a financial advisor, I'm quite passionate about differentiating that. Financial literacy is that base knowledge that you deserve to have, that everybody should have. It's the budgeting, it's the cash flow, it's the understanding what super is, it's understanding how to spend less than you earn. It's not the complex, it's not the investing, it's not the things that people like to scare you off with funny acronyms and talk about. It's all those things that you genuinely should have learned in school and should have as a base level of understanding, because at the end of the day, the world goes round with financial literacy and the world goes round with money, and we can't do anything about that, unfortunately, but it just makes no sense to me that we don't talk about it. So financial literacy is what I believe everybody deserves. And then financial advice is that next step if you're planning on taking it and getting somebody else to take control. But regardless of where you are in your journey, financial literacy is essential.
Yeah. Okay. So for an opportunity here, not for any shaming, but if you had to right now rattle off the biggest mistakes you see that young women are making regularly, what are they?
You know what? It's not to shame. It's just people are going to go, oh yeah, that's me. It's sticking your head in the sand about it because it's all a bit too much. It's all a little bit too hard. It's a little bit daunting or overwhelming. Like we don't really want to talk about super because we are smart humans and it can make us feel not smart. It's hard talking about budgeting and cash flow when at the end of the day, that's such a reflection of our values. And when we look at it and go, oh my gosh, I really need to sit down and do my budget, you actually feel like you're judging yourself. It's not about other people. It's not about me shaming you because my friend, I could not care less what you spend your money on as long as you are happy and you are nourished and you have the literacy and the education you deserve to make the decisions you want to. But more often than not, the biggest mistake is, not knowing what you don't know and finding yourself in a position where you've spent more than you've earned and you're in a little bit of a pickle when it comes to debt and you keep your head in the sand because it just feels like too much to deal with it. So I think that would be the biggest mistake. And then secondary to that, it would be not having an emergency fund. I think too many times people will be like, oh my gosh, I don't need savings. It's fine. I've got a good job. I've got this, I've got that. And just, I think everybody needs, regardless of whether it's $100 or, $100,000, it doesn't matter, whatever your situation lends to, an emergency fund is essential to get you out of any situation, place, disposition that you are in that you don't want to be in. Because, as women, we deserve to have far more power than what life affords us.
Yeah. So bouncing off that, when we're considering managing our money for the first time, there can be a lot of these big ticket items like buying a car, saving for a house deposit, saving for a big trip. And then there are all these ongoing things like tax, superannuation, investing. How do you recommend we work out our priorities when it so easily feels like there is this pressure to always be keeping up with everyone else around us or questioning, am I where I need to be or where I should be right now?
It goes back to your own values. So I think when you rattled all of that off, you're like, oh my gosh, car, house, this, that, the other. It's like, let's actually take a step back and pretend there are no values here and go, where have these come from? Why do you want a house? Why do you want a car? Like at the end of the day, you might go, oh, Victoria, I need a car because I need to drive to work every day. And I'll be like, okay, I get it. Let's budget for it. But I think the very first step is actually understanding who you are and what you want out of life and forgetting this great Australian dream. And I don't want anybody to feel disheartened when I say that. But I think too many times we just make the grand assumption that one of the markers of success and one of the markers of becoming an adult is to buy a house, right? But why? That's a lot of debt to take on, a lot of responsibility and a lot of constraint that's put on you. And you end up in this position where you're like, is that what I actually wanted? And nowadays, like my friend, it is 2022. If you wanted to travel the world and be a freelancer, you have that ability and financial freedom is going to afford that if that's what you want. But I think we need to step back and go, well, actually, what do I want to get out of life? Are these goals aligned to that? If they are, fantastic. Let's work forward to it. I'm a staunch advocate of, spending in line with your values. Like my shoe collection and the fact that I have a mortgage are definitely both a testament to that. But I'm always saying to other people, like, do you actually want that? Or do you just want it because you saw it on Instagram or you just thought it was some kind of marker of success? And too many times people sit down and go, oh, Victoria, it's just because my parents keep telling me I need to buy a house, but it doesn't align with my values. So I think it's about going back to your roots and what you genuinely believe is what you want to achieve with your life. Like we have so much power. We need to be leaning into that.
So what advice do you have for those who feel like they have no money left over to save or invest and are stuck on this hamster wheel living week to week?
Living week to week is a really big problem. And it's not a problem in me being like, oh my gosh, this is an issue. It's not. It's actually a problem because you are stuck in these habits and you feel so directly that you're not good enough or that you're not able to achieve things. And it goes back to that mentality of keeping your head stuck in the sand. So I think it's all about just taking a step back and going, do you know what? Why am I living week to week? Is there a very genuine reason for this? And if you're, watching this and you're like, well, Victoria, I live week to week. I'm actually a mum of two. I earn $50,000. I'm single. I don't have the ability to save or invest or do all these fancy things that I keep hearing about. And it makes me feel terrible. I think at that point, you go, do you know what? You're doing a pretty good job. If you're a mum of two and you're earning 50 grand and you're putting food on the table, like you are a queen. But on the flip side, if you're looking at your income going, Victoria, I earn so much. I have absolutely no financial commitments. I have no kids, no partner. Where's all my money going? That's when I go, look, go back to your budget. Go back to what you're spending. And what a budget is to me is probably very different to the budget that we've grown up being told should exist. For me, a budget is not about restriction. It's actually about understanding every single dollar that comes into your account and every single dollar that then ultimately goes out and what that looks like. Because most of us would be able to say, oh, Victoria, I earn a $70,000 salary, or Victoria, I earn $100,000, or whatever you earn, but you probably can't tell me the sum of your costs. You probably can't tell me, okay, well, Victoria, of that $100,000 each and every single year, I spend $90,000 and I have $10,000 left over for savings and I've already allocated that. Like most people will say, oh, well, I know what my rent is, or I know what my, groceries are on average, but we actually need to know those bigger picture numbers. And there are 4 numbers that I always talk about. And you would know because you're a podcast listener, so I do apologize. But it's the earn number. So what you earn, what you own, what you owe, and what you spend. So I want to know those 4 numbers. And I want you to always have your finger on the pulse when it comes to those numbers so that you know where you're standing. And when it comes to week, I think it's about what you want to achieve with your life. What is that? Is that serving you? Are you happy there? If you are, let's not change a thing. Why? You're happy, you're thriving. That is not what I'm here to shame people for. What I'm here for is if you're saying, look, Victoria, I don't feel like I'm achieving enough. And I can go, okay, cool. How do we achieve the life you want?
So on budgeting, let's say we're saving for a big ticket item like a car or a house deposit. What are some active measures we can put into place during the saving process to ensure our money works harder? Is the only solution a spreadsheet?
Oh my gosh, no. I love a spreadsheet. I would like to think that I'm the queen of spreadsheets. If anybody follows me on social media, you know that I will make a spreadsheet for literally any reason. You're going on a holiday, I've got you. I will make a spreadsheet for it. You want to organize a house renovation, you've got it. You want to know how much coffee you drink every year, I will make you a spreadsheet for that. But spreadsheets are not everybody's love language. So what we're going to do is step backwards and go, what is my language of success or achieving? Is it actually just setting up automations so that instead of having my spreadsheet tell me what to do, I actually have automatic direct debits coming out of my account the day after payday so that I always automate my savings and therefore I don't have to refer back to a spreadsheet because the money's not there to spend. Is that going to work better for me? Is a savings chart on my fridge where I color in each individual saving item or saving goal, is that going to work better for me? It's all about understanding the way that we learn. And once you realize that everybody learns differently, lots of people are visual. I'm so visual. I love having things on my fridge that I can track. It makes me feel like I'm progressing. So I think it's all about what are these big ticket items, but how are we celebrating the successes along the way? For example, if you want to save $10,000 in a year, just saying that isn't going to make it happen. We need to work backwards and go, okay, well, what is $10,000 a year? Let's break that down. Do I get paid weekly or monthly or fortnightly? How much is that per pay? How much do I actually have to allocate to this goal? And once I've worked that out, is that actually achievable? Because more often than not, you'll see women in particular set a goal that they then realize is unachievable and they go, oh, I can't do this. I'm so bad at budgeting. No, you're not. What you're bad at is setting up the process for success. Once you've got that, budgeting can be really easy because it's all about set and forget. So I think it's about putting ourselves in the control seat and not setting ourselves up for failure by setting a goal that was unrealistic to begin with.
since listening to your podcast, I've automated once I get paid, this money goes here, this money goes here.
Oh my gosh, that makes my heart so happy.
It just makes me feel so good. It's all taken care of and I feel in control. And, I don't have to think about it actually. And, it's a bit of a moment of pain to set that up, but then it's done and you don't have to go there again for a really long time. So that was a great tip I can vouch for.
I am so glad. That makes me genuinely so happy that people are actually taking these tips on board and finding success with them. And it's funny because some people wouldn't like that at all. Some people are like, I hate when my stuff's automated. I want to go in every month and transfer it. And that's where we just have to find what works for us because we're all different. Personal finance is that, right? It's personal.
So on a personal piece of advice, if you could give your university self some financial advice, knowing all that you do now, what would you say?
Oh my gosh. Baby Victoria was so good at personal debt. I spent way beyond my means. And I obviously would love to think that I'd go back and say, do you know what? This is not appropriate. You shouldn't be doing this, Victoria. You need to save for this. But I'm very much one that likes to celebrate past me and past mistakes that I've made because that's what got me here. Like, I genuinely feel like I sympathize with my community better and understand my community better and have that level of empathy that my community deserve because I've been there. I know what it feels like to have credit card debt that makes you feel sick at night. It makes you feel horrendous. So as much as I would love to go back and tell past Victoria, like, oh my gosh, please don't do that. I think that at that point in time, I was doing the best thing I could with the tools and resources I had. And that those decisions made me who I am today. And I wouldn't want to change that. And I would hope that other people who have made decisions that they're now more educated on don't crucify past us because it doesn't serve us. It doesn't build us. What does is putting future us first. And putting future us first is all about the budget. It's all about cash flow. It's all about actually being open and honest and pulling our heads out of the sand. Whereas if we just go, oh my God, I wish I'd known this then, it doesn't actually create any type of value. And I think it's very kind on ourselves to go, do you know what? I did the best I could. I was doing well. Do you know what? I also had a heap of fun. Would I change it? In a perfect world, yes. But that girl, she learned so much and that's gotten her here today.
And she had fun.
Oh, I had so much fun, honestly.
So to finish up on a really positive note, before we head to audience questions, I'd love for you to share a story that holds a lot of significance for you about financial empowerment or how someone has turned around their financial fate. Perhaps a listener to the podcast or someone in the She's on the Money community.
So we have just come out of a very tumultuous, nearly 2.5 years. And over the last 2.5 years, I have been so grateful for the She's on the Money community. But the thing that I have missed out on is that physical connection with them, right? And at the start of this year, we got to do International Women's Day events. We did one in Melbourne and one in Sydney, and there were 400 people at each event. And it was the most special thing in the entire world to see my community come together and talk about money and be so passionate about it. But that wasn't, I guess, the pivotal point. The pivotal point was the plethora of women that came up to me to say, Victoria, I just have to tell you how you've changed my life. I just have to share this with you. And some of them were small goals, some of them were big goals. But I cried so much just seeing how women could take back the power and go, I was in an abusive relationship. I got out of it. I was left with a heap of debt. I'm finally out of it. And I've just started a savings account and I have an emergency fund. And like my heart explodes because I know the power of what that's going to look like in 5, 10, 15, 50 years for them. I've sat down with women who are like, Victoria, I had $5,000 worth of credit card debt. I've been sitting on it for the last 6 or 7 years because I just can't be bothered getting rid of it. I'm finally debt free. Like, it's stories like this. It's the small stories that are intertwined in my community. There's no one story that sticks out because obviously those are two ends of the spectrum. They are completely different, but it's the idea that not only did these women want to share those stories with me and share it with the community, but they actually share it with each other. Like, and you see it online every day in our community where someone will say, oh my God, I'm finally out of debt. Money win. I'm so excited. And there's just this stacks on mentality in my community of people going, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. I love this. I love you. You're so great. You did such a good job. You should be so proud of yourself. And you're like, you don't know these people, but it's as though they all have each other's back. So I think for me, it's literally just the sense of community that has come from this and knowing the impact of what that's going to look like in 10, 20, 50 years. Like, it's a very small goal, but I would love to think that we can change the entire financial literacy of a generation. And with the women that are in our community, they're going to do it. It's not going to be me. I might have started a workshop a very long time ago, but it's these women and their tenacity and how much they have each other's back that is going to grow this.
If you're in the audience and you're listening to this, I am in the She's on the Money Facebook group, and I can absolutely vouch for this amazing supportive mentality. So if you're not already in it, you really need to get in there right now. We have a couple of questions coming through from our audience for you, Victoria.
Let's get to them. How fun.
Someone has said, I am struggling to save for a house. Do you have any tips on saving for a deposit without the help of parents?
Yes, it is such a hard position, and congratulations on making that goal. That is so exciting. I would say break it down. Break it down into smaller goals and make sure that you're not doing something that is completely overwhelming. Let's be really realistic. One of the ways that I would suggest saving for a home is actually just, again, breaking it down into smaller pieces, but really working out what that actual deposit looks like. Because I think too often we just get a number in our head that we actually haven't done any research on. You might go, oh my gosh, I need $100,000 for a house deposit, and then I'll work out what that looks like. What I actually want you to do is go on like realestate.com.au, have a look at what your dream home looks like, calculate what that deposit is, calculate how much of money you're going to need for stamp duty, and then go from there. As much as times change and the markets change, it's just a better way of wrapping your head around whether this is reasonable for you or approachable for you at all. I would then make sure that we're celebrating the small wins. Like, put the money in a separate account that you can't touch. We're not saving in our normal bank account. We've got a separate account over there. And every time there's a milestone, I would be celebrating it, whether it's sending a screenshot to your best friend or going out for an extra coffee on a Saturday morning. Like, we need to celebrate the small wins, because I'm very much a believer that as much as that's the goal, like, we have to enjoy the journey.
Absolutely. So do you have any suggestions for money apps or tracking apps to help budget or to keep track of spending?
Oh, I mean, I'm very biased. I created a free spreadsheet. You can download it from the She's on the Money website because everybody loves free things. But I would also have a look at apps like WeMoney and Pocketbook. They can all be really powerful tools. I know our community really love them, but it's all about actually getting down to the nitty-gritty of it, as much as asking which app is going to work or how is this going to, change my life. I think lots of us get caught up in the idea of like, all right, I just need to find a solution. I need to be better at money. And we download an app and we hope that that's the thing that changes the way we approach money. In reality, what we need to do is take a step back and go, why do I feel like this? How does this work? You need to do a little bit of the grunt work. And as much as it's not sexy and it's not fun and it's not, what you want it to be, because I promise you'll need a really nice cup of tea or maybe even a glass of wine later tonight to actually do this. But you actually just need to sit down and go, what am I spending? Like, what is it? We're not judging ourselves because, as I said before, that is putting you in a really bad position. It's not helping anything. But what am I spending? Let's be really realistic. We're not here going, cut out coffee because you'll save $1,800 a year. That doesn't serve anybody. Let's actually have a look at where our money is flowing and whether we're happy with that or not. And then once we understand how that works, then we can add in things like apps that actually help us better articulate that to ourselves, as opposed to hoping that an app is actually going to change our lives, because unfortunately, it's not the case.
Victoria, thank you. Thank you so much. This is all we have time for today, but we really, really appreciate your time. Make sure to follow Victoria on social media for more amazing financial advice.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Now, please welcome Amy Campbell to introduce our next panel discussion.